Okay, so I just wanted to make this little review for the WUA 2.4 story from what I played. Just gonna go through it and review it to the best of my ability. Nothing like crazy in depth. I mean, I don't even have a script or any notes laid out. Just gonna go off from what I remember. So it opens up with you flying on one of those stingray thingies with Abby, and you're flying towards Septimont, and then your connection with Abby gets kind of cut off. Once you land in Septimont, you eventually come across Lupa. Um, Meanwhile, kind of like happening at the same time, you're getting visions of Cardathia doing something, like arriving in Septimont, but it doesn't really look like the Septimont that you arrived in. Um, and so you keep going through, you do a couple of fights, like arena battles with Lupa. You two register with a team together, and you two go through a tournament. So you got like finals, semifinals, like, all that stuff. So all the meanwhile, you start getting these little like looks into or like past the reality that you're seeing. And we're introduced to this character, Maya, who you also previously saw kind of swapping places with Lupa in your kind of flashbacks with Cardathia. So you go on, during one of the matches, Lupa calls out rigging. Um, that kind of plot point is never addressed again because Rover, our character, says that they feel the same frequency as a Thernodian. So I'm not sure if the person who got arrested for like fixing the match was actually fixing the match. She did have ties um to them in the end after all. So I don't think that was ever really addressed. It was kind of like a smaller plot point now that I'm like remembering it. But Lupo calls out that the match was rigged because her weapon almost struck us. We blocked it. So after that, we get introduced to Luno and Augusta, which their designs look absolutely amazing. Like 10 out of 10 here. Um, Designs for 2.0 just keep getting better and better. But moving past that, you end up obviously winning the semifinals and the finals. Throughout, like in the middle of the matches, you have these like little moments with Lupa. Um, and some of the moments between the matches is when you're using that device that that character gave you to view into the past. After you win the finals, the Lioness of Glory comes down, and like gazes upon your team, which has only ever happened for Augusta and Luno before. It's like some like big accomplishment, right? Like you fought so hard, you were so brave that you were recognized by the Lioness of Glory, which at the same time, either at the same time or right before, I'll have it up on the screen, but Cardathia is fighting that same Lioness of Glory. I mean, this was a big point. And this was before the finals, I'm pretty sure, because this was before the second half of the story. Um, you get taken to like a hotel, right? You go into your room, you go lay down to sleep, and when you're sleeping, you have a dream with Frolova. And now Frolova kind of goes and says, like, hey, Lupa's gonna die. Um, this is all kind of a story that's being written and already played out, and she hands us a book to be able to like view the story. So for whatever reason, Frolova is not really on our side, but kind of on our side. So it picks up after you and Lupa win the grand final and get gazed upon by the Lioness of Glory, and after Cardathia defeats the Lioness of Glory in her section of the story. Um, it picks up with you talking to Lupa about this ancient site. And you two head there. It's like a burial ground for the warriors. And you get a little bit of backstory there with Septimon and warriors and things of that nature. You feel around. You end up unlocking a door, which you and Lupa go through. But right before you go through, Lupa's like, it feels like this isn't the first time I've been here. And you get more flashbacks to what happened with Lupa and Cardathia. So as the story kind of unravels, we're introduced to Maya again, and this part of the story is actually pretty dark. So the plot line here is that Maya ended up stabbing herself and throwing herself off a bridge into water, so that way she wouldn't come under the Threnodians' control. Well, her body was like preserved, and Cristoforo essentially just keeps her since her body is still like a host for the Threnodian, um, which is yeah, that's pretty messed up. But um, his whole goal here is to essentially create a story to feed the Leviathan. But in order to do that, like it's got to be a good enough story for him, I guess. Also, the story like repeats itself. So Lupa herself has gone through her story where I don't know exactly where the story starts, but it might be centered around all those gladiator matches and everything. So let's just say it's centered around that. That's the start of the story for Lupa. So she was stuck in this loop of going through those matches, and then the dark tide rolls in and consumes all of Septimont, and she's left just as a straggler and eventually dies. And then the loop gets reset once again. So she lives through this who knows how many times before Cardathia comes along. And what Cardathia does is she leaves right a bit of herself on her, like a trace of her resonance on Lupa, so that way Rover can kind of know what's going on, know to help Lupa. And in doing so, resets the cycle or sends her kind of into another story, like another page, while Cardathia stays there and fights Cristoforo and, whatever Threnodian enemies that come along. So in our version of the story where Rover shows up, we get to the very end of that story, right? And hand Lupa the book and send Lupa onto the next page, just like Cardathia sent her onto the next page. And so now Lupa comes back and restarts the story with all of her memories this time. Memories of Cardathia, memories of Rover, memories of, all the different loops that she's been in. So she goes along and we end up draining some water in one of the districts there in Septimont, the area that was flooded. We end up draining the water, and then that is where we learn more on the story of what Cristoforo was doing with Maya. We fight the Leviathan and obviously end up winning, while all at the same time Cardathia is fighting and Rover's fighting in their own stories, because all the stories like converge and come to an end, at least visually from what we're shown at the same time, even though there's definitely some time difference there between them all. We emerge victorious, we stop the cycle, but there's still the question of, number one, why Forlova helped us. Oh, and the big one, I almost forgot. Scar is back. I'll put that on screen here. Scar is back. And he's with Cristoforo. Now, my predictions for the next story is maybe with Forlova helping us. She obviously doesn't seem like she likes Cristoforo, or maybe his ways of doing things, because he does seem pretty twisted. Like, so maybe there's a fracture there within the Fraxidus. And she doesn't really want to help them anymore. It becomes more of like an anti-hero, maybe. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, hopefully Scar has more of a role coming up, because it's good to see him again. He was great. He was like the best part of 1.0 story by far. So it's good to see him back with updated visuals and stuff. But yeah. So you start off going to Septimont. You realize that something isn't up. You uncover that Cristoforo's resonance ability is to like create stories. um, and you're living in it. In the end, you, Cardathia, and Lupa, mainly because of Lupa, because she's the one that defeats the Leviathan, end up breaking the cycle and freeing yourselves from the story. Now, the visuals, the atmosphere, the cinematics, especially the cinematics, the dialogue, just a lot of the stuff in this update, I feel like WuWa just update after update gets better and improves so much. The cinematics are crazy. I just played through and I still need to make the review for the latest Honkai Star Rail story. And while that story did have some great cinematics and great cutscenes, it it still comes across with the same problem of the like poses and how dialogue is handled in that game. Now, luckily, there's a skip button added to Honkai, so I did skip through a lot of the dialogue and just read the summarized part, so I wasn't completely lost. There's some parallels within both of these stories. I think I'll point that out in Honkai Star Rail's video instead of this one, or maybe like just a full-on comparison of the two. But for now, for my first review, very scuffed, all over the place, no script laid out, I would give WuWa 2.4 a solid 9. I would give it a solid 9. There's a few, no, 8.5, because there's a few plot points that I feel like are kind of dropped. Not really explained well, but also will probably be explained in the next update to the story, because I feel like I've had that issue before, and then it's ended up being resolved either through a companion story or through the main story or whatever it may be. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what games you'd like me to play or stories you'd like me to review, any type of content you'd like to see from me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.